Hey everyone, this is John Dye with today's Mentorship Mike episode. We've got Maclain Nelson with us. Maclain, welcome.
Hi, how's it going?
Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Welcome to my hotel room in Brooklyn, New York.
Interesting. Okay. I was wondering because I was like, that's a nice little flat you've got there in LA. That's
No,
great.
this is a hotel. I'm in town this week seeing a couple plays in New York here. One that my father directed, that a student of his wrote, and so doing a little supporting of of theater this week.
Love it. Love it. No better place than to be New York in July, right?
Yeah, well, yeah,
If you can
yeah,
handle the humidity. Well, good.
yeah. Handle the sweat, but you can handle the sweat. It's great.
That's right. That's right. Well, good. Let me give everyone just a brief overview. I've known you probably for, 10, 12 years now. It's
Yeah,
been incredible,
yeah,
but you've got a long and storied career in the time that I've known you, even before I've known you. But Maclain Nelson, Canadian American, right? Dual
yeah.
citizenship.
Mostly
Okay.
American, but yeah, I do have dual
Okay.
citizenship, which
All
is
right.
nice for work.
I was going to say, and you have an escape valve if you ever need it, right? For any reason. So, a great filmmaker, and actually, I say you're more than a filmmaker, but we'll talk more about that. But you're known for your genre-spanning work as a director, writer, and producer. You can do anything. Your directing credits include the upcoming thriller "Don't Move." I've seen the trailer for that. It looks great. "Once I Was a Beehive" is one of your pieces as well. "Dudes and Dragons," I remember that well, and "Vamp You," starring Alexis Knapp and Gary Cole. He produced the 2023 Sundance debut "Aliens Abducted My Parents," and "Now I Feel Kind of Left Out," starring Jacob Tremblay and Will Forte, which was a big thing. And the 2018 coming of age family drama, which I loved, "Little Women." Leah Thompson. You guys just did a great job.
Thank
The
you.
whole cast and crew. Multiple holiday films you wrote and directed are featured on Netflix, including A Heidelberg Holiday, "Haul Out the Holly," starring Lacey Chabert. Am I saying that right?
Chabert, yeah.
And its hit sequel, "Haul Out the Holly Lit Up," which ranked as Hallmark's top-rated movie of 2023. So that's quite the accolade. That's really good.
Thank you. Thank you.
You also created the improv-based TV series Show Offs, which people can see on BYU TV, 3 seasons of episodes, correct?
Yes. Yes.
We were just talking about that. There's more left in the tank if there's
Yeah, yeah.
appetite, right?
Absolutely. I would love to reboot that one. It's got lost in the COVID shuffle and we needed, it was a live audience, so
Yeah.
show went
Yeah.
away. But, you never know. Hopefully there'll be life for that again.
Absolutely. All right, good. Well, Maclain, take us back a little bit. What first drew you into filmmaking? Your dad obviously is very involved in the arts, probably your mom as well, and maybe your whole family. But how did that early work shape what you pursue now from a arts perspective?
Yeah, it's interesting. My parents both met like at BYU studying theater, but and then my dad was a theater professor. He actually got an MFA in playwriting, but they didn't really force me that direction. I was exposed to plays. I grew up doing like the plays at church and school and Music Man and so I was exposed to theater like growing up, but like in my high school years, I wasn't doing a lot of theater. I kind of got sucked into the sports world. I was really into football. So and like the football always competed with the musical. So I just sort of didn't do much theater in high school. But having been exposed to kind of the arts and creativity through my father and mother, it definitely was a part of me, and it's sort of the way it sort of came out in me because I was always a performer. I was always like into film. I actually was doing I did student government at my school, and instead of doing the sketches that they would do, like the live kind of they did this weird thing where they would pre-record the sketches so that, I think so the students couldn't like say something off color
Yep.
and live in front. So they would pre-record them and make you lip sync. So I said, this is not funny. Can you let us do just movies? And that way you can watch them, beforehand and let us project those. So we started doing movies in high school. And this was in the 90s, like late 90s, putting ourselves into movies like Star Wars and Grease, using green screens. And like, we were kind of like ahead of our time for the
Yeah.
technology, but we just, so making those kind of little that was really my start, was making silly little films. But it was still kind of like, I don't know, I still didn't think it was viable to do that for like your actual job. You kind of were told, just get a business degree, let that be your fallback. But I started doing live comedy my freshman year of college at Comedy Sports. I was one of the first members of that troupe and really loved that. And then actually I did a mission in Philadelphia, and I found myself on my P days. I had a companion that had a camcorder, and we would, on our P days, we would just make fun little movies. And that was what we did, to
Very
kind of
cool.
blow off steam and hang out. And so I just, after I changed my major from pre-med to actually, acting. And so yeah, that's kind of like the start of it. But it was my parents were very supportive, but they weren't like pushing me in that direction. They
Yeah.
kind of let me decide on my own.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, and a wide and varied background, obviously student government, like you said, and athletics and other things. So that's interesting. So in the time since you've started, though, you've acted, you've written, you've produced, you've directed, right? You've worn about every hat that there is to wear, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yes.
What do you enjoy most? If Maclain had, to choose a lane, is there a lane that you would choose, or do you like these two things equally the same? Tell us more about what you enjoy.
Okay, so for me, early on in my career, I thought acting was the only thing I wanted to do. I thought performing was kind of like, or at least the number one thing I wanted to do. And I still love it. I would say it's the most just pure fun. And when you get cast in something, you're really able to just have fun. You don't have to worry about all the details of the production. You don't have to worry about budgets and schedules. You just kind of got to show up when they tell you to show up and be prepared and just play. So that was really fun. But I kind of, when I started realizing like how much though, if you're just doing that, you're at the mercy of whatever project comes along. If you're right for it, if you get the audition, even if you do great at the audition, maybe somebody else, maybe somebody else has another, or has a different vision for it. Or, maybe it's the producer's brother that needs the part. You know what I mean? There's so many politics and there's so many different things. I just kind of felt like after a while, I was learning pretty soon that like you have to be very lucky to get consistent work. So that's when I really was like, well, I know my strengths. And so I started writing for my strengths. And I'd started being on enough sets that I honestly, like through writing, I decided I wanted to do directing because it had a very specific vision for what I'd written. And I wanted to make sure that was, that vision was followed through on. So that's kind of why I started like learning directing and shadowing directors that I liked. And so I would say now for me, writing and directing are so kind of intertwined because most of the things that I direct, they're things I've written. And so I, it's hard for me to really separate those, but I will say that like at this point in my career, if someone told me I could never act again, but I'm still able to write and direct, I'd be sad, but I'd be like, that's okay. But if someone told me I could never write and direct again, I could only act, I wouldn't be able to deal with that. So I think it's the fulfillment that I get overall from the writing and directing is for me more kind of like it fills my cup more than just acting does, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. An associated question, have you ever shown up like as an Easter egg in anything you've written or directed? Do you show up just with a cameo spot every once in a while?
Yeah, I mean, like in Once I Was a Beehive, I'm one of the nerdy rangers with the mustache. I show up in that. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, in my movie A Heidelberg Holiday. Actually, this wasn't on purpose. This was because we were shooting in Serbia and we could not find an act. Our lead actress was blonde hair, blue eyes. We could not find someone to match that didn't have a very thick Serbian accent, and we needed someone to play her brother. So I was like, "Look, I didn't set out to play that part, but you'll see me in that movie at the very beginning, which was fun for me because that's a movie I kind of pitched and created and wrote from the ground up, and then got to go to Germany and direct it. So yes, I love acting, and I have my best friend and creative partner Jake Van Wagner. He'll cast me in things, and other directors I know if they know what I can do, they just say, "Hey, will you come do this?" And I love acting. I love playing when that comes around. But I don't have an agent for acting, and I don't actively pursue it like I do writing and directing.
Yeah, got it. Got it. Got it. Well, you mentioned Once I Was a Beehive. So let's maybe stay there. We are talking about the intersection of faith and media, and this is maybe a good example. So I'll probably need you to explain to people that don't understand what a beehive is, what that refers to. But that was inspired by your mom's work, right? She ran a lot of these camps, and
Yeah.
maybe you can explain what a beehive is and what the camp is. But how did you decide in that film what to keep from her experience versus what you injected or you changed for the sake of story? Tell us a little bit about that because, again, that was a project we worked on together. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so the genesis of this project was sort of, it felt strange to me because I'd never been to girls camp. I mean, obviously, I'd been to a lot of Boy Scout things, but like I'd never been to girls camp, but I just watched my mom's preparation as the camp leader. I watched her put together this giant super organized binder of all the activities that she was going to do with these women. And then I watched her care so much about it and literally prepare for almost like a full year before it happened. And then you hear the stories from my sister and from other people that, at the congregation that were like, oh, it was so amazing. It was so this, it was so that. But to feel compelled to write a story about that was strange for me because I'm like, I don't know why I'm feeling this kind of push for that. But I have a theory in like filmmaking, like the project, if you're a writer, especially the project that kind of nags at you and you can't like let go of, or it, like comes, when you're in the shower, when you're driving, or when you're, those things that like just keep coming to your mind, like you have to pursue and you have to do those projects or else, I don't know, the universe gets mad at you or somebody else will do it, or I don't know. I just feel like those stories that are kind of falling out of you, if you have to really see those through. And for some reason that was nagging at me. I loved what, I mean, it was so interesting culture piece. And so I collaborated with Lisa Clark and Haley Smith on, like talking a little bit more about it and then, collaborated on the story with Haley. And then I just kind of gathered everything and went into a cave and wrote the script. But I think a lot it was inspired by my mom, but it also, I really wanted to, I'll have things that I listened to a John Denver song that's called, I Guess He'd Rather Be in Colorado. And like that song alone, it's about this man who's like, loves the woods, loves camping, but is stuck in New York City. And it kind of, that like sparked this idea of this father who loved camping and wanted to inject his, like that love of nature to his daughter. And that's strange, like, because, and my grandfather, it's such a weird, like kind of like leapfrog thing. My grandfather loved John Denver, would play John Denver all the time. And he passed away from cancer at a young age. And that inspired me to kind of the germ of the story, which is, if you've, spoiler alert, you see this in the trailer, you see this. So it's not too big of a spoiler and it happens within the first 10 minutes, but our lead character loses her father to cancer and, but has this love for camping, and that kind of like sets up her character. And when she goes on this, anyway, it just like this story just kind of unfolded in my brain. And so it was kind of a mix of like telling this story of loss and grief and the need for connection with nature, really with kind of what I observed of my mother and her camp. It just felt like it would be a good story to have a fish out of water, a woman who'd never experienced this, coming into this set up camp. And oh, sorry, to answer your question, but like they used to in those days, up until pretty recently, there were the three classifications of the different age groups were Beehive, Miami, and Lord, which are kind of very old school names. But like, I like the idea of like, once I was a beehive, it makes you question, wait, what does that mean? Once and so anyway, I think it's a title that like people are drawn to because it is a little strange.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and once you watch the movie, it becomes very clear, but,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it transcends kind of the maybe insular religious terminology, right? Once you it's a timeless quandary that people hit, and you blended the comedic elements well with the the growing up, the coming of age elements, which was really good.
Thank you.
Let's move on to some of the stuff that you've done with Hallmark and Netflix and others. So several holiday hits that you have written and directed recently. So let's talk about this. This might be I've wondered about this, and I think other people do. How do you approach telling a story that has formulaic elements, but you want to keep it fresh as well, right? Everybody goes to the Hallmark Channel to feel good, right? They know what's probably going to happen. And the old joke, the old trope is, yeah, you just insert characters in a different location, right? And I know it's not that easy. I know it's not that easy, but there is some formulaic reasoning behind this and then adding the fresh elements. Talk a little bit about how you add those fresh elements. What do you do to keep it fresh, but also keep it hopeful and Hallmark-esque?
Okay. It's a very, very good question. I usually explain this with a bit of a visual. Hallmark knows its brand very well. This year's their 25th, anniversary of making movies. They know their brand. They know their audience. They have it. So I describe it as a sandbox. They have a very specific sandbox that they want to keep you in. Okay. And they know their rules. They know everything and about what their people want, and their executives are very smart, and they keep things on brand. So I understand that I have to be in this sandbox, but my goal is to build the sand as high as possible, to go as vertical or down deep. You're still within the sandbox. You're not trying to push the boundaries outward, but you are driving up or you're driving down and going deeper. And that's where I have found the audiences are willing to go on the journey. Like early on, the network and audiences were not sure if, comedy was like, people shied away from it a little bit because it's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to keep, everybody happy. But I felt like if it was character driven and we really we made sure we weren't just trying to be funny for funny's sake, but like having the laughs come out of the character development and out of like the, how different people, interact with each other, how polar opposite characters interact. And I was lucky enough to be given the Haul Out the Holly series because they had said, we loved Lacey. She started in comedy, like in Mean Girls. She's so funny. We want to give her something that she can really sink her teeth into comedically. And they knew I was pretty good with like ensemble casts. And so they gave me that movie. And if you've seen it, it's got this crazy characters of like, it's a cul-de-sac of characters that are just hilarious and they all have their different quirks. And I really kind of drove down on like, giving them as much backstory as possible. Like I love to build huge amount of backstory, even if it never comes out on screen. I share that with the actors and I share that with, so they all know their back. So all of their decisions kind of come from this like deep and rich history, which becomes really fun, especially when we got to do a sequel and then a third movie, like the Halloween movie, which was so fun. So it was, it's taking what they give you and just building on top of it and using my skills. I was lucky enough to like learn how to do comedy in a family friendly way from from the culture of raising up as a Latter-day Saint and as a Christian. And so, and even as an improviser, comedy sports was very much like dedicated to clean comedy and comedy that, and it's actually everybody that knows comedy knows it's actually much harder to do things that people can laugh at and not necessarily be offended. So I was luckily trained in kind of that way. So it's a good fit for me to do these television comedies that you can watch with your grandma or you can watch with your youngest child.
Yeah, awesome. And you're really, really good at that. And speaking of that, what's one detail, Maclain, that you think most audiences rarely notice, but you think make a huge difference in these family or holiday centric stories that you're telling?
That's a tough question. So a detail that people don't. Okay, listen what it is. I think one of the details that people, I'm trying to say this. Hopefully this makes sense. It's our audiences are a lot smarter than some people give credit for. So what I like to make sure that I try to make sure that every little, like, I don't let loose threads be loose. If there's a question about like, where do they come? I like it. That's why I build like intricate histories and inner, like I will put in threads that if you watch it later, you'll realize, oh wow, he was thinking about this all along. So I'll give one example. In the first Haul Out the Holly, the very last scene, I have the Ned character, played by Stephen Tobolowsky, who's so hilarious, sitting at a table with Jared's mother, and they're sharing a hot cocoa, and they're looking at the stars. And I planted a seed at that moment. Movie one, I had no idea we were going to get movie two or movie three, but I'd started building these, like these character dynamics. And I thought, how funny would it be if these two single adults, Jared's mother and Jared's arch nemesis, the across the street neighbor, were to later have like some sort of romance. So I decided, this wasn't scripted, but I put them at a table, and like we ended up scripting it. Like, it wasn't in the first drafts, but just planting this seed that then later paid off 3 movies later. So it's sort of like, I don't know. I think great studios like Marvel they do this. They kind of and Pixar, they really they build out their world so intricately that it seems like a tiny little detail that nobody cares about. But if you do care about them, then the movies just they're more rich, and you can watch them over and over, and you pull new things out of it that you never saw before. And so that's one thing I like. It's really paying attention to the tiny details and giving your audience credit that they are going to notice them.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
yeah. That red thread that goes, if it's a standalone episode, it makes sense. But when it's connected amongst, it's really, really smart writing. Okay. Now let's go to some micro musings. These are quick call and response, right? So quick question and answer. Would love your thoughts on this. Writing draft 1 or polishing the final cut?
Draft 1. I mean, the script is it's your blueprint. It's you base everything on that script. So you're going to have to polish it no matter what. But if it doesn't start solid structure wise, you cannot fix it in editing. But if you are solid from there, the editors will have a lot of options to polish and make it amazing. But I do think you really have to start strong.
Absolutely. Good answer. One word, Maclain, that describes your personal directing style.
Collaboration. I know that I am not an expert in there's too many fields for, that go into a movie, makeup, costume design, set design, locate, there's so many things. Editing. I mean, editors, I call them magicians, because they see things you don't see. And, I work a lot with Christy Shimmick, and she's a magician, and so basically, and I want everybody to bring their best, because if I get everybody's best, this movie's going to be amazing. So why not really make collaboration be your number one thing? Best idea wins.
Yep. Love it. Love it. Give us one film you wish you had directed.
Gosh. Well, I'll have to say my favorite movie of all time, Royal Tenenbaums. It's just got my favorite cast. It's got I laugh, I cry at that movie. It's just an incredible movie.
That's good. Okay. How about a scene that you'll never forget shooting?
A scene I'll never forget shooting. I would say probably one of the scenes in Vienna. I shot a movie, Christmas in Vienna, and it's been my favorite city. I did my study abroad there when I was in college, and I was just sitting, shooting this movie on the same, it's the same carousel. It's called the Reason Rod. It's the big carousel, and it's the same one where The Third Man shot, back in the day. It shot, the after the after sunset before sunrise. They shot there as well. It's this iconic, film location. And so being able to shoot there was probably, and we had a full snowstorm, which was perfect because it was during Christmas time. It was just all the elements came together. And so that's one that just pops off.
Awesome. Okay, one more question, then I've got a few student questions that I'll ask. So look into the crystal ball 5, 7, 10 years ahead. How do you think storytelling is going to change? How is it impacting Hollywood and maybe the rest of Atlanta and other domestic locations? But does storytelling change? I guess that's a good question, but also what are some of the tactical practicalities about location and other things that students should consider?
I think story is going to be a pendulum. I think it's going to swing back and forth. I know everybody's talking about, well, nobody has an attention span. We live in this digital age and everybody's watching TikTok, and I think that is true, and I think that there will be appetite for shorter content, vertical things people are watching on their phones, but I do think that we as humans love longer form storytelling, and we will shift back. So I would say, I don't know. I try not to get too focused on what the trends are, but more focus on what interests me. I think if you're too busy looking backwards at like what's everybody doing or like I think you're kind of already too late. I think it's like the format that draws you in, the format that excites you, if you do that and pour your efforts into that, you will find your audience. And sorry, what was the second part of that
Yeah,
question?
that's well said. And yeah, no, I think you answered it. It was really storytelling is storytelling, whether it's done by a caveman or by somebody in 3020, right? That's really important. I was interested though. Yeah, you addressed the vertical formats and some of those other things do you ever envision yourself jumping on the vertical bandwagon, or do you see kind of that will take over horizontal?
Like I said, I'm never going to jump on a bandwagon, I don't think, but I've done that in the past, and I've made a mistake. I've made decisions on content to follow, and it was kind of like, oh, everybody wants this kind of movie, let's do that. And by the time I made it, the market was tired of it. So I decided, from now on, I want to just make what interests me. So if a vertical idea interests me and I think it's best told in that platform, then yes, I'll do it. And then also too, like if I get hired to make one, like you have to put bread on the table, you know what I mean? So like there is an element of taking jobs for the job. So there's nothing wrong with doing something that you're not necessarily like 100% into because you just actually need to feed your family. That's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not going to turn anything down that I think, if it's calling to me, just because I don't necessarily I'm used to the format or whatnot, if that makes sense. You have to be able to adapt and be very nimble, and you have to be open to different things, and also you just got to be able to follow your instincts.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Okay, some student questions. Brooke asked this: Utah has become a regular base for some of your films. What's so special about Utah? And I'm going to add something to the end. Besides Vienna, what are some of the favorite places that you've shot? So maybe address what's so great about Utah, and then are there any other spots that you've really enjoyed shooting?
Yeah, absolutely. Utah is great because it's so diverse in what it has to offer. You can, in landscape, you have the deserts, you have the forests, you have lakes, you have it all. You have places in Salt Lake that look like they can be New York, a lot of diversity, and there's a really great talent base of people. People like the lifestyle in Utah. There's really talented people that have, done huge things in Los Angeles and all over the world, but have chosen to settle in Utah. So it's just a good place to shoot overall. And the government has been good at tax incentives over the years. I want them to be better. I want them to add more to it. But you just really, in this day and age, it's too expensive to shoot without a tax incentive. And so that's why you see all the production going to places that have them. So as long as Utah has a tax incentive, we'll be able to shoot there. Some of the other places I've loved shooting, I just got done shooting a movie in Greece, in Corfu, Greece. That was just beautiful and amazing. I got to shoot also in Sicily recently. And then one of the Eastern European partners have been really great. Like I've had a great time with great crews in Bulgaria in 2 movies back to back that I just did. Also Romania and Serbia have been great as well. But yeah, I mean, Ireland does a great job. Like Europe is kind of, they're stealing Europe and Canada are definitely taking the US production because of, the amount of incentives that they offer, and it's cheaper to shoot over there. So
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Good to know. Robert asked
I'm worried
this.
about,
Since you
am I getting a little,
I've still got you. Can you hear me?
okay, good. Good, good.
Okay. All right. We're back. Robert asked this question. You studied acting and writing before getting into directing, or you've done acting and writing. How has that background changed the way that you talk and direct actors on set?
Knowing acting has been a huge plus for me in my directing because I speak their language and I understand how hard it is to be able to perform in front of people, on cue, on demand with a whole group of people with microphones in your face and everybody watching. And it's a lot of pressure. And so to be able to understand what that's like and be able to speak their language and help them kind of get to a place that they need to be, that's been absolutely, like invaluable. So I would definitely, anyone who wants to direct, I would say, even if you'd never want to be an actor, like take acting courses, do what you can to help understand what it's like to be an actor so that you can speak their language a lot more and help them understand. And writing has helped that too, because when you write the script, it's a director's job to know the script better than anyone. Even they need to know it better than the writer if they're not the writer, because you never want your actor to really stump you on the script, because you need, actors are usually in their lane about their character and they'll ask you a question that's very specific about their character, but they don't necessarily look at everybody else and know. So understanding the script beginning to end will really help you in those moments when the actors, well, wouldn't I do this because of this? And you're like, but they're not thinking necessarily about the whole story. And so you have to be able to know that so well that helps them, because when you are the authority on the script, that respect makes them want to follow you and lead, like follow your guidance, and you'll be such a great leader, but you have to literally know that thing forward and backwards. So writing it helps you do that, but also, just reading and reading and reading. And so anyway, that would
Yeah,
be the advice I would give.
that's great. That's great. Mark asked, what's a professional compliment you've received in the past, Maclain, that means a lot to you still?
I consistently get the compliment that my sets are, that people have never felt like as much respect and as much like gratitude for their work, and that my sets are so much fun, and then they are fun. We have a blast on my sets, and they say that comes from gratitude. I lead with gratitude. I know that most of the films I do are lower budgets. I've been able to do one of the giant budget movies where everybody's getting paid so much. But even if I still think that like you have to lead with gratitude. People are doing this for their job, but they're also doing it because they love it and they're passionate. So you got to be grateful for that. And I thank people for what they do. I've done almost every job out there, from like doing the art department, from doing locations managing. Had to scrub toilets for the first movie at, like at different locations. I have a respect for everybody's individual job, and so that's been a great compliment when people say, hey, I felt really appreciated, and I felt gratitude, and so that's literally that makes me feel great when people feel safe because they're able to do their best, and they want to give you the moon if they know that you really care and you know that you are grateful for it. So that's my best compliment.
Awesome. That's great. That's great. I'm going to end with two questions, and then I'll give you 3, 5, 6 minutes, whatever you need to talk to our audience about something that we may not have hit on. Again, just remember these are people of all faith, but they're probably between 19 and 24, 25 years old, right? In college somewhere. So my question to you is, right now, if we put a stake in the ground, Maclain, when you look at your career as a whole so far, what are you most proud of? And what are you still trying to what's the hill you're trying to get to the top of, the mountain you're trying to ascend? What do you still want to prove? So what are you most proud of in the past? And what do you still want to do looking forward?
Ooh, tough questions, John. Honestly, I think I'm most proud of the fact that I'm still doing what I set out to do. That, this is it's a hard business to crack into. And the fact that I've been able to survive and, it looks like I'm trying to connect. Are you seeing me? Sorry. It's giving me an error message.
Anybody that's still alive, hopefully we'll get Maclain back here shortly. I think we're good. I think we're good.
I'm so
No, it's
sorry.
good.
What happened?
No.
internet went
Welcome
out at this hotel, I guess.
yeah, welcome to New York, right? Yeah, I'll send you instructions on how to upload from your machine afterwards in just a second. But let me ask that question again, and we'll
Okay.
keep going. Is that okay? We're
Yes.
almost done. We probably just got
Sorry.
7 minutes or so. That's good. So, Maclain, when you look at your career so far, in the rearview mirror, what are you most proud of? And looking forward, what are the hills you still want to climb? Right? What are the mountains you still want to ascend?
So I mean, the basic thing I'm most proud of is the fact that I set out to do this, to become a filmmaker, and that I'm actually doing it and I'm still working in it. I just finished directing my 22nd film, and I had to pinch myself and say, wow, I cannot believe that I've been able to do this and keep it moving. And so that's kind of on the basic level. The second thing is probably the fact that I've been lucky enough to do so many different genres. I mean, I have a horror movie coming out in theaters this September. And then I've also done comedies and like religious thrillers like Saratov Approach, and then heartwarming family movies, and then straight up comedies, and then action fantasy comedies, based on like my favorite movies, like, Princess Bride. And so it's like, to be able to have done so many different genres and still be making movies and still be in the game is just so, that's what I'm very proud that I'm still here, I'm still kicking, and, hopefully I have a lot more. And the thing that I want to make, it's my goal in life that before I leave this earth, I want to have made a movie. It doesn't matter what genre it is, but I want to make a movie that is a classic movie that, like, if you go anywhere around the world, 9 out of 10 people will have at least heard of your movie.
Wow.
So either like a Christmas classic like Home Alone, or like like an adventure movie, like, like a Back to the Future, or like or a classic comedy that, like, Dumb and Dumber, that everybody's seen, and everybody. I want to make it. I want to make one classic movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if I just keep chipping away, like it'll happen.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. 22. That's incredible. Good for
Thank
you.
you.
When you think of younger filmmakers, Maclain, what do they need to know about persistence in the industry? Many of these people have they care about the intersection of faith and media. What do they need to know about that, and how that has fueled you in your journey, or provided a foundation or a backdrop for you really to rely on in hard times? So talk about the industry in general, but persistence, their faith. How do you retain your faith, in an industry where, rightly or wrongly, it's often accused of many people abandoning their faith because of long shooting hours or other things that may cause issues with keeping the rites and rituals of a faith tradition. What would you say to them?
I think that success in any industry boils down to, like, your personal integrity. I think that I think that, like, you have to bring your integrity to your job. And what I love about Christianity, which is, where I identify, is the fact that, like, it's all about forgiveness. Because you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to mess up, and people around you are going to mess up. And so I feel like I practice my faith daily in my job as a filmmaker, because I am the first to admit I made a mistake here, guys. Like, this blocking isn't going to work. Not that it's a sin, not that it's wrong, but, like, to be able to have the humility to say, this isn't working. And even though I'm the boss, I can say, I made a mistake. Let's go back and let's fix this. When someone brings me a prop that we talked about and it's not right, and the whole joke depends on this prop being very specific and looking great, and, but it's not good, to be able to, rather than just berate this person, because that's not going to do any good, but be able to say, okay, we talked about this. This isn't working. What can we do now? We have this amount of time, and just be able to kind of, like, lead with that, the overall kind of principle. And this isn't just a Christian faith thing. That's in every faith that I've looked at. There is this element of love and forgiveness and kindness, and treating people as you want to be treated. I think the best way for me to show my faith is not any other way, but then the way I treat people on an individual basis, and kind of use that kind of like that golden rule in every aspect of your work.
Yeah, right? Oh, that's how it's actually actualized, is how you treat others. So
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. What haven't we touched on? What type of advice would you give to people entering the industry? What do they need to know, principle based?
I think what I wish I would have learned was I would give this writer this especially to actors, and actually anybody in this industry. You need to, in order to excel in what you do, you need to understand all of the different roles. You need to have empathy for all the different roles. So I would say, even if you're an actor, get a job on set as a PA. Get a job, you know what I mean? Even for free, as you're starting on. Get a job, on the art department. Learn the different aspects, even if you don't stay in there forever. But if you can learn all these different aspects, it's going to inform what you do a lot better. And you just have to survive in this business, you have to have lots of arrows in your quiver. You have to have lots of different skills. If you are a actor, I would write things for yourself. I would practice writing, I would practice directing. We all have phones now that have editing software and these amazing cameras. Like, you have the access to you have the ability and the tools to do things that was so much harder. And so I would just, if you really want to do this, it's about consistency and just doing work and keep working, and not waiting around for somebody to come give you the opportunity of your life. You're going to have to create that. And you only do that by continually working. This is the one industry where it's like, it's not just something you plug into and you have okay, I have a job, and there's not such a plan laid out for you. You have to make your own plan. And so it's really about just the consistent little things, and taking the jobs that you're never going to regret. I don't think you'll ever regret the job you say yes to, because you're going to learn something from it. And even if you think but you just gotta build the hours and put in the time, and stick with it. It's less about your amazing talent. It's more about your consistency and your, just willingness to stick with it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So what I've heard from you today, I'm just going to hit some highlights I think that I heard. Number one, persistence, right? Sticking with it, getting out there, doing something. And even if it doesn't meet the level that you want it to, you're going to get better with iterations, right?
Yeah,
Stick with it. Relationships. One thing you're so good at, Maclain, is creating and maintaining relationships. And I think this is a relationship business. Most are. This one is highly relational. And
yeah.
so treat people the way you want to be treated. Again, follow the golden rule, and your future's bright.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're a joy to work with, people will bend over backwards to try to get you back on a project. This, to me, all the time, I think about, that actor was so great. They had this tiny part, but they were so great. I want to give them something bigger now. Or a set designer, or a props person, or yeah, it's just true all across the board. Be a joy to work with, and people want you back.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Maclain, thank you. It's been so good to be with you. It was good to see you last week on set, and
Yeah.
then again today virtually as you're in Brooklyn. But thanks again for all the good you do. And I know you'll have one of those films in your future that we look back on, that is Princess Bride or Royal
Yes.
Tenenbaums or Napoleon Dynamite, or something that everybody just points to and says Maclain Nelson. So when you get that, just remember you knew me at one point, okay?
Absolutely, John. I got you.
All right. Maclain, so good to talk. Thanks so much.
Yes. Thank you so much. Take care.